I'm like 90% sure I dated a serial killer.
And just when you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this, 'cause girl, the way she discovered the dark secret is even crazier.
So I was listening to a true crime podcast, and then they were talking about this serial killer, obviously. And they said, oh, he was from this state. And I was like, okay, that's where my ex is from. And then they said, oh, and then he moved at this time. And I was like, oh, that's when he moved to Ohio. And then they were like, and he's 6'6". I was like, my ex is 6'6". And then they started describing his appearance. And I literally exactly how my ex looks. And I was like, oh, okay, getting a little weird.
Yikes! And with so much similarities, everybody is dying to know, is her ex-boyfriend really a murderer? Or is it just a huge coincidence? Emmy Dane, or simply Emmy, is an influencer from the USA with over 200,000 followers. And she is now going viral for her ex-boyfriend. But before you get ahead of yourself and think it's like any other cheating story, you're definitely wrong. Because it has the darkest plot twist ever. It all started when Emmy was listening to a true crime podcast about a real-life serial killer. Then slowly, detail by detail, the serial killer sounds too familiar.
They said, oh, he was from this state. And I was like, okay, that's where my ex is from. And then they said, oh, and then he moved at this time. And I was like, oh, that's when he moved to Ohio. And then they were like, and he's 6'6". I was like, my ex is 6'6". And then they started describing his appearance. And I literally exactly how my ex looks. And I was like, oh, okay, getting a little weird.
But that's not all, because nothing could have ever prepared Emmy for the next information.
And then they said his first name. And wouldn't you know it, that's my ex's name. And I was just like, that's, it's a coincidence. It's probably a coincidence,
Emmy was so in denial that she tried so hard not to think of all the similarities, until she remembered one very important detail about her ex-boyfriend.
And I started thinking about it. My ex is the one that got me into true crime, because he was so fascinated with the mind of serial killers. Take with that what you will.
Her video quickly got over 16 million views and thousands of reactions, and many people are going wild to know more about the whole story. Some users even tried to guess who her serial killer ex is, and due to popular demand, Emmy just had to spill a little bit more.
He was dark and mysterious, and I thought I could fix him. And he kept telling me, you're too good for me, you're too good for me. You shouldn't be with me. I'm not good enough for you. And he kept telling me there's stuff you don't know about me. It's just like looking back at this, our whole relationship is like, oh, that's why he said that.
But there's a big problem here.
I don't know his last name. So he did not give me his real last name. And he had a very toxic childhood, a very traumatic childhood. So therefore, he didn't like his last name, and he refused to tell me what his last name actually was.
Because of that, people started to think that her story was faked for clout. But Emmy stays unbothered and said that she isn't a liar. Well, if it's true, then Emmy must be really thankful to be the girl that got away.